Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining in today. I am Diana here with the Whole You, and today I'll be your moderator as we explore the principles of self-defense with iron robes. Today, our guest instructor, Dio, will lead us through this workshop as we demonstrate some of the basic forms and moves in self-defense. We'll also leave some time today to, after the demonstration, to open the floor for any questions that you all may have. So before we get started, I just want to take a few moments to call out some of our meeting norms during our session today. Instead of a PowerPoint presentation, we've opted to have our session be entirely on video to demonstrate the moves and concepts being shown. Within the chat box, I will be sending out a PDF of the material we cover, and you are more than welcome to have this material up and open alongside this Zoom recording or this chat as we Zoom recording and the material as we go about our workshop. We're also going to field any questions and comments that you may have towards the end after our workshop during our open Q&A. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Dio from Iron Robes to walk us through our self-defense workshop. I'll also be attaching the PDF now for you all to access. Thanks, Dio.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk to you today about the principles of movement, principles of spatial awareness, and then I'm going to show you some basic techniques. The first thing I want to talk to you about is spatial awareness. Now, when I say spatial awareness, what I mean is that in any kind of a situation, understanding the space around you is the most important aspect of maintaining your personal space and also your personal safety. If someone wants to engage you, whether they're attacking you, whether they're starting a conversation with you, or shaking your hand, they have to position themselves to do so. Okay. Now, in this conversation, we're discussing self-defense. So, you want to have about 4 feet in front of you and about 3 feet behind you, or enough space to extend your arm behind you. Sometimes this is harder than others. You can easily gauge a situation by looking around. And the reason you never want to have your back to a wall is because if a larger person is in your personal space, you're cutting your power, your mobility, and your general agility in half. If I'm against a wall and I can't really move forward, but I also can't move forward, it's going to be much harder for you to get. Okay? So you want to make sure there's about an arm length of space behind you. The other component to this is prevention. Okay? Before 90% of physical confrontations begin, steps can be taken to avoid that confrontation simply with body language and communication. If someone is aggressively engaging you, you can deter them simply by being confident. You want to be respectful without being submissive. Maintain eye contact. An ideal position for your hands is here at your chest. It's much easier to react. It also isn't directly confrontational. Okay? So the next thing we're going to talk about is natural movement. The principles of natural movement that apply not only to self-defense, but anything you do that uses your body, whether you're using a hammer, you're carrying something, your entire body should be moving in harmony. If I throw a punch, the power starts not at my hands, but at my feet. I push off of the floor. I then turn my hips. I sharply breathe, forcing my abdominal muscles to contract. I then push my shoulder forward and the opposite shoulder back. And at that point, the punch or the arm is only an extension of the power in the rest of the body. You see, so you reduce fatigue in your arm and you increase the power because you're using your entire body. When your body moves with harmony, not only do you maximize the effectiveness of whatever you're trying to do, but you also minimize injury. Say, for example, I was to throw a kick and I moved my shoulders in the opposite direction. Not only am I taking power away from my strike, but I'm also risking pulling muscles. I'm risking hurting my spine. So movement optimization is a very important part. It's also something that can give someone who is much smaller or weaker than their opponent a chance to be just as or more effective. Most people in confrontational situations are in fight or flight. So they're not really thinking about all these different principles. They may sound simple when they're explained, but when your adrenaline is high, when your stress is high, and you got all that extra cortisol in your system and you're not able to think clearly, it can be very complicated. So you have knee-jerk reactions, and oftentimes knee-jerk reactions aren't conducive to harmony in your body. So I'm gonna talk to you about some of the principles of this and some of the techniques. Whenever you do anything with your body, whenever you move something with your hand, whenever you move in general, you want to consider the process of movement. You want to consider where it begins. You want to consider where the power starts and where the power comes from, okay? If someone is trying to strike you and you simply want to move out of the way, rather than taking a step to the side, you first want to move your head. The head leads the body, okay? It's a lot faster to move the head than the rest. And once you move the head, inevitably the body will follow. Another principle is the optimization of movement. I don't believe in wasting motion. So if someone's trying to hit me, and I move to the side.
Ça tombe bien parce que j'allais te faire une photo du monsieur. Comme ça, tu peux le dire quand même.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Dia. That was someone that hadn't gone on mute yet, but we're good.
Okay. So I'm gonna restart that. I don't believe in wasting motion. Okay, so if someone is trying to strike you and you want to move out of the way, your body is already moving. You already have power. Why not extend that power with a strike? Okay, that way you strike and you avoid at the same time, or you can strike and you can block simultaneously. And by combining these two movements, you don't require as much speed. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to block and then come back with a hook. Speaking of punches, there are several types of a punch you can throw. The most practical is the jab. Why? Because this is much more visible than this is. You can see this a mile away. You can see this coming. But that is a lot harder. It's much more streamlined. If you have a decent jab, that's really all you need. Kicks. Most of them should be avoided. Kicks above the waist shouldn't even be in your vocabulary. Unless you've got years of training, they're not practical. Someone can catch your foot, they can push it up, they can twist it, break your ankle. So don't worry about the kicks. Okay? The next portion of this I'm going to talk to you about is specific techniques, physical techniques you can use. Okay? The first one, it's used in several disciplines. I picked it up when I was studying Krav Maga. And the way that works is You start with your hands against your chest, as I told you. Now this should be your default position. You're in a social situation, you're outside of a store waiting for someone. You just get comfortable with this position, okay? So let's say you're cornered. You can't move, you can't walk away. It's three parts. And before I show you this, I should tell you, this is something you should only use if you absolutely need to use it. Don't try it horse playing with your friends. It's effective, but it also causes harm. So it starts with a double eye gouge. Thumbs into the eyes. And as you pull your arms back, you exchange the position of your hands for the position of your knee, okay? Now your knee has to come down, so what you do is you stomp on the instep of their foot, okay? From that position, keeping the pressure of your foot and your body weight on their instep, you push, then you get away. The thumbs to the eyes will temporarily, well, it could cause blindness, but they're going to be grabbing their face, the knee to the groin, the stomp on the foot, could break the ankle or the instep, depending on your weight, but it'll give you an opportunity to get away. And this is effective if you have a much larger person or opponent against you. You don't have to be very strong to do it. So that's something you can practice slowly, and then when you have the technique, you increase the speed. So it's just like, you know, you switch legs. So it's also decent cardio if you do it for a little while. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to throw a punch. A lot of people think they know how to throw a punch. Few people do. This is not a punch. This is not a punch. Okay? As I mentioned earlier, the power of a punch starts at your feet. I don't care if you're throwing a cross, an uppercut, a hook, or a jab. Okay? It starts at your feet, and it starts at the hips. If I'm just going to throw a jab, what I'm really doing is this. If I'm throwing a left jab, my left foot is going to push off the floor. My left hip is going to go forward. Okay? Then I exhale sharply. Breathing affects the power of your strikes. You breathe slow, it's calming, it's conducive to stamina if you're doing long distance running. If you're doing something explosive, you breathe sharply, it forces you to contract. So if you're throwing a punch, you contract and your shoulders should turn. Okay, not only is my left shoulder going to move forward, my right shoulder is going to go back. Okay, so if I throw a jab and I pull my opposite shoulder back as I'm pushing my dominant shoulder forward, that's going to enhance the power. It's going to enhance the momentum of the strike. Okay, so I have my feet, my legs, my hips, my core, my shoulders. And all that is going to make for a much more powerful punch. That's how you have tiny boxers that can get into a fight with someone 3 times their size in a situation and beat them, because they know how to use their entire body. Their entire body has more power than the arm of that much larger opponent. So it's about speed, but the preparation isn't about speed. It's about the technique. And you want to remember that. Technique comes first. Once you have the technique down, the speed will come naturally. Once you're comfortable with the technique, then you add the speed. Okay? So if I'm throwing a jab, what I'm thinking about is 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, the next I'll show you is a cross. This is the most powerful punch in the world. It has the most power in it because it maximizes the power of your body. Now, the way a cross works, it's like what I just showed you, but amplified. So you're more of a crouched down position and you push off of the floor as if you're about to sprint. You maximize the turn of your hip. And what happens is you have a very long strike. The range is huge, okay? And you never start with a cross, okay? It's a big commitment, need a lot of speed. It's usually something that's accompanied by a jab, okay? Now I'm going to show you a technique that allows you to position yourself for a cross. Now this is an elbow, okay? Now the elbow, obviously from the elbow to the shoulder, it's not as long. So you want to maximize that range. Now what I'm going to do, my target is in front of me, is that. Okay, I'm turning 90 degrees. My weight is coming down into my leg. And all that weight is going into my elbow. Now you'll notice when I throw my elbow, my hand is open and it goes behind my head. You always want to have your hand open. Okay, you have a closed hand, you're likely to punch yourself in the face. Now, what happens once I throw the strike? Okay, let's say it lands. Guess what I'm in position for right now? A cross. Okay, so I'm in this position, need to get out of it, someone's engaging me. Your strikes should always be less than 3 at a time, okay? You get 2 strikes in, you move away. Even if the confrontation is continued, you want to watch what they're doing. And when you're practicing these techniques, you don't really want to practice more than 3 strikes at a time, especially when you're getting started. Start with 2, 1 or 2. Now the other one I'm going to show you is the uppercut, okay? The way the uppercut works, it's usually part of a duck, okay? So the motion, it's not this, it's more like that. So you duck something, and then you roll your shoulders, and you come up like that. Ideally, you can target the solar plex or the organs from the side. It's something you can throw diagonally so that the knuckle of your index finger meets the solar plex as the rest of your knuckles are flush with the rib cage. This is a strike that can take the wind out of someone much larger, and chances are it'll give you time to get away. All right? Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the throat. Okay? It's one of those soft places where you don't need a lot of pressure to take the wind out of someone. And when you're throwing strikes, one of the simple principles that's taught in a lot of different types of martial arts is that you want to meet hard surfaces with soft surfaces, and soft surfaces with hard surfaces. So if you're using your knuckles, you don't necessarily want to hit someone in their forehead. Okay? You have your palms is considered a soft surface. Your forearm, you know, if you're hitting someone in the stomach, you know, you don't necessarily want to use that. You want to use a harder surface. Now, I'm not going to show you a ton of these things because I don't want to overwhelm you, but the things to consider, most important things to consider are the spatial awareness, the movement optimization, de-escalation. Now let me talk to you a little bit about confidence. Okay, and there's a lot of stories I've heard about things happening, especially around the University of Washington campus. I'm sure none of you are a stranger to these stories. There are some basics, common sense things you can do. Obviously, if you want to go running at Green Lake, do it during the daylight hours. Even if you have a large dog, you know, you want to have someone with you at night. There are a lot of things you can do, but things happen. We all make mistakes. We all forget things. You always want to avoid looking down. You want to avoid spending time on your phone when you're walking alone out in public. You go out into the city or anywhere, and everybody's on their phone. Everybody's doing this, but they're not looking around them. You also want to avoid looking down any more than you have to, because when you look down constantly, it projects a lack of confidence. It makes you look like prey. You don't have to walk around with your chest out, but be aware. Scan your surroundings. Breathing is another aspect of this that can actually affect your confidence. When you breathe calmly, when you're present, it manages the stress in your body. When you manage the stress in your body, you minimize the cortisol. You're constantly stressed out, and you're tense, and you're not really breathing with harmony. You're going to be overloaded with cortisol. It's going to affect your ability to make decisions. It's going to put you in that fight or flight mode constantly. But if you're confident, that will reflect. A lot of situations can be avoided just by being present. Not only confident, but also acknowledging. If someone is engaging you in a very aggressive way, make eye contact, speak clearly, acknowledge them as a human being, be respectful. And this can avoid 90% of the situations people are in. So, let's see where we are. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about kicks now. As I mentioned before, you want to avoid throwing kicks above the thigh area. However, there are some useful things to know about kicks below the thigh. In particular, if you kick the inside of the calf, or the calf in general, about 3 or 4 times, it forces blood to coagulate, which actually it can temporarily paralyze that leg. If someone is attacking you, and people generally don't avoid leg kicks. They have their legs out like this and they're doing their thing, and they just think they can eat it. They're protecting their face and their throat. So the way you throw a kick, just like you use your hips and your legs when you throw a punch, when you throw a kick, it starts with your shoulders. It starts with the opposite side of the body, okay? So if I want to throw a leg kick, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my shoulders, then my hips, and the leg is going to come up and then down. Because when people stand, typically their legs are at that diagonal angle. And you want the impact to be perpendicular, okay? So to do that, your foot comes up and then it comes down. And that's the motion of a kick, if it's in the thigh area or the calf. Now, another part of the leg that's very vulnerable is the inner shin. You kick someone there, it's going to be twice as painful as anywhere else in the leg. Same idea. You can also do that. Someone is grabbing you, You can kick the inner shin. You can kick the calf. When you're on your own, you can just practice your kicks just like that. But it's important to remember the up and down motion. I've seen people throw a lot of kicks where they're just like that. And so the kick is actually just sliding up and not really making impact. The force is just gliding up the body of their opponent. You want all of the force to go into the opponent. Okay? Now, let's talk about knees a little bit. Now, with the knee, you don't just want to do this. You want to lean your torso back when you throw a knee. If I want to throw a right knee, my left shoulder is going to move back as my torso leans back. So all the weight of my torso is going into that strike. And the knee is something you should do if someone is close to you, if you're tussling with someone, it's an unexpected strike. The good thing about throwing a knee or an elbow is you don't have to worry about injuring your wrist. When you throw a punch, it's important to make sure your fist is straight and impact is perpendicular. If you throw a hook, you can bend your hand slightly to make sure your wrist is safe. But if you're throwing an elbow, it's a bit safer. Some people like to wear rings, they like to wear jewelry, long nails. If you're in a situation where you can't just take that stuff off, it could be good to use an elbow or an open palm strike. Open palm strikes, you never want to go straight out. You always want to go up at an angle. You can go for the nose, you can go for the jaw. Another thing to consider is how you block. Okay? When you block, it's important to know that the more vulnerable part of the forearm is actually the inside here, where the toughest part is this. When you throw a strike with your hand, it's very important that your fist is straight, okay? Now, it's not just important to have the angle down, because when you make impact, this is going to happen. You want to be able to tense your forearm, squeeze very tightly, and also consider the angle of the strike that you're throwing, okay? So if I'm throwing a jab and I know that it's going to strike straight, I tense up my arm and I keep the hand straight. If I'm going to throw a hook and I know I'm going to be traveling at an angle, I'm going to curve my hand. And this is actually one of the safer strikes because of that. It's harder to maintain a straight angle on impact. And by the way, I don't think I showed you a proper hook. So a hook is called that because it resembles a fish hook. It's shaped like that. Now this is something you throw ideally as you're moving, okay? I would only throw a hook if I'm already dodging a strike. And as I showed you before, if you're already moving to the side, why not throw a strike at the same time? Your opponents already opened themselves by extending their arm to hit you. Okay, and even if they're faster than you are, if you can dodge and strike simultaneously, your chances of impact are way higher. Okay, so if I'm moving to the side like that, I just come in, and there's a lot of power here because not only am I using the motion of my body for power in my arm, but I'm also moving down. So the weight of my body is traveling into that strike. Okay? And I know this is a lot to absorb, but the training that I offer, it starts with simple fundamentals and makes them become second nature. Okay, it's really all about anti-inflammation. So any kind of training, it should be harmonious rather than stressful. Okay, you want to embrace mistakes that you make. It's okay if you're awkward, or if you feel like you look silly when you first practice the techniques. That's totally natural. When we make the mistakes, it shows us where we need to improve, and also teaches us how we move. That's okay. A lot of these things, some of you will try to do on your own, and it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. You're going to feel like you're not doing it right. But really, it's about getting the technique down. You want to slow down and just practice these techniques. If you reach out to me and we work together, I'll figure out how you move, and I'll give you things that work for you. For example, if you're a short, sturdy person, you're going to train differently than if you're elongated or if you're tall and slender. But everyone has something that's ideal for them. Okay, and as I mentioned before, these are principles that apply not only to defending yourself in situations, they apply to exercising, they apply to moving things, and most importantly, they apply to how you move your body. Okay, you slip and fall. If you're able to move harmoniously, you're able to catch yourself without pulling muscles in your body while you're trying to break the fall. Okay, if you have to do something that requires a lot of energy, you're able to maximize your stamina. You're able to calm yourself through your breathing. You're able to minimize fatigue by using all of the muscles together. So, although some of the things I teach, they are very explosive, the general principles are harmonious. It's all about harmony. Harmony is the enemy of inflammation. We live in a world where we're surrounded by inflammation. The food we're subliminally persuaded to eat, the information we're fed, it's all inflammatory. And most of the problems that happen in our bodies, in our minds, are from excess inflammation or from oxidation. So why not exclusively consume and facilitate things that are anti-inflammatory, things that are harmonious? And when you do so, you realize you don't need so many of the things we're programmed to believe we do. And that's what this is all about. So in a very short period of time, I'm going to answer some questions. And if you would like to work with me further or know more about iron robes, you can send me an email, direwolf@humanoid.net. You can check out my website. There's a contact page there, ironrobes.com. I'm on Facebook, Direwolf Omega. That's my actual name. Dio is just easier to say. But yeah, and Diana has attached a pamphlet with basic information also. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions.
Yeah.
Diana?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dio. Yeah, I actually had a question that was fielded to the group earlier on when you were doing your demo and moving through the, I believe it was the earlier parts, you'd mentioned a part of the body called the Solar Plexus. What part of the body?
The Solar Plexus.
Oh, Solar Plexus. Solar Plexus. Let me type that down. And can you, just for, everyone here in the chat, where is the Solar Plexus?
Absolutely. I should probably wear a snugger, lighter colored shirt next time. So the Solar Plexus is right here. Okay, so the rib cage goes up, and there's that little spot. It's like a little pyramid where the ribs meet. It's right under the sternum. So sternum comes down here. This is the Solar Plexus right here. You'll notice it's like the first soft part as you're going down the sternum. Okay.
Thank you. And I've just also pasted the website and where you can contact. Again, in those of us who haven't been able to access the PDF in this Zoom chat, sometimes that makes it challenging too. I'll be sending an email out to everyone registered, and you can also contact us directly for the material here. John, it looks like you have a question next. I'm seeing your hand raised. Did you want to ask it directly, or if you type it in the chat, I can also field the question for you. But go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. And also thanks, Direwolf, for your very comprehensive instructions today. I had a sort of high-level question. You mentioned Krav Maga as the inspiration for the first sequence of moves that you demonstrated. I was just wondering if you have a preferred style that you use, or if you're just a general practitioner.
That's a very good question. No, I've studied many martial arts, and I feel that the most effective martial art, or most effective way to perform martial arts, is to have a comprehensive knowledge. I'm not going to say MMA, but the concept of MMA, mixed martial arts, I feel is, I think that's the best way to understand how to defend yourself, really. You study as many things as you can, find what works for you. I feel that Krav Maga, it's very useful because it's very quick to learn. Where you study Wing Chun Kung Fu, and it might be 3 months before you can actually use something. But with Krav Maga, after like a week or so, you're going to have something that you can use. And in the context of the training that I'm offering, there's a lot I take from Krav Maga simply because it's so quickly applicable. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. I did see someone who asked how anti-inflammatory nutrition fit into it. But did that answer your question, John?
Yeah, Direwolf, that's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And I'm fielding questions as they come in. A question that we've gotten is about around the field of spatial awareness. How can one avoid situations on the street or unknown areas if we find ourselves in that position? What sort of spatial awareness practices can we employ in these unknown areas or
okay, well, I'm going to answer that, and I'm also going to answer the one that just popped up about, for women in particular at the same time. So spatial awareness, it's not only just understanding, like the 3 feet behind you and the 4 feet in front of you, just knowing what's around you. Are there tables? Are there doors? Is there something you can put between yourself and your opponent? It always starts with body language and everything, but if you've gotten past that point, it starts with knowing where you're going to be. Like if you are planning on going somewhere at night, much more energy should be put into considering the environment. Are you in a well-lit area? Are you in an area where there are a lot of places to hide? And this applies for men and women. If we're going by the statistics alone, for women, you should be much more cautious at night. You should be much more cautious. I would avoid parks at night if you're alone, honestly. Unless you have a giant dog or a gun, even in those, you want to avoid situations where you have to use such means. At nighttime, if you're going to be out, have someone with you. And even so, like as I mentioned, don't be glued to your phone. Just be aware of your surroundings. Have upright posture. Look out on the horizon. Don't be timid. Be present and be confident.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I like along that lines too, what I got from that as you were speaking to the presence, like present within yourself, within your body, and within your surroundings around you. That makes a huge difference in terms of spatial awareness. Another question I'm going to field along that topic was asked around how to deal with mentally ill people, or if someone is coming at you with a weapon or something that can be used as a weapon, how would one de-escalate or essentially get out of that situation? What would you recommend?
Absolutely. So first off, I will say, like, I live in Seattle also. Now I'm 6'3". People don't generally approach me in that way, but I've seen people interact with each other, and a lot of the mentally ill people, they most of them can still connect. They still understand basic things about human nature, and if you project insecurity, they will capitalize on that. I've seen people being harassed who are just trying to keep their heads down and keep moving, and they feed on it. They keep going. So the principles of projecting confidence, I would say these apply in these situations also. Now, if someone attacks you with a weapon, well, it depends on the weapon. There are techniques I teach for knives and for guns. These are more advanced techniques. They're prerequisite things to learn beforehand. For knives, I would say the spatial awareness thing, if you can just prevent them from closing the space, if there's there's a table, there's a tree, there's something, just keep space between you. If you can move toward a space that's well lit where there are other people around. And I just saw someone ask about drugs. This applies to people on drugs who might be attacking you also. But yeah, the techniques for taking a knife from someone or a gun from someone, frankly, it wouldn't be safe for me to just show you something right now, because if you attempt it without really understanding it and practicing it, you could get hurt. So I would say, if tomorrow something happens, understand the spatial awareness, put something between you. If someone is they're yelling at you from a distance, if you can just keep walking, that's pretty good. If they approach you and get up in your bubble, that's one thing, but most of the time they just yell at people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and yeah, that applied to the drug question also.
Great points. Thank you. And another question we had was a look again at the moves, and I think this would also apply for kind of combine some of the questions we had around getting away. Alice had asked if you could show the movement for eye, knee, foot plant, and push again.
Oh yeah,
you can demonstrate that. Yeah. Okay.
Now the funny thing is, this is a very meditative exercise also. So it's one. Now when you throw the eye gouge, all the principles of movement still apply. Okay, so I'm still exhaling. Okay, my shoulders are going forward. I'm contracting my muscles, and it's all about the exchange. So as I'm pulling my hands back, I bring the knee up. Okay, and then I stomp on the instep. Okay, and once I have my weight on the instep, I then push. Now, if you're a heavier person, that can be very effective, because when your weight is on their foot, if you push them and you keep their foot flat, it breaks the ankle. If you weigh about 100 pounds, I wouldn't count on that. But the eye gouge, the grind shot are going to be effective regardless of whether you're heavy or you're petite. Mm-hmm. Now, there was one question I saw about how anti-inflammatory nutrition fit into this. I'm just going to answer right quick. As I mentioned earlier, everything that I teach it's all about anti-inflammation. I'm also a nutritionist. I don't know if you looked at my website and saw that or not, but the general principle is harmony. It's creating harmony in our bodies to maximize and optimize our function. You're more functional with our bodies, more capable with our ability to make decisions, and a greater quality of consciousness. And what we put in our bodies relates to all of that. You know, we just think of, oh, I'm getting nutrition, I'm fueling my body. It doesn't just affect your body. It doesn't just affect your skin and your bones and your muscle mass. It also affects your brain. It affects how you think. It affects the chemicals in your body. So that's where it ties in.
Mhm. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. A few more questions we've gotten around moves specifically. So as you were,
That's not a common occurrence. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
no, I
All
mean,
right.
like having this workshop is pivotal. You know, there's chaos all around us. So being in harmony with yourself.
Exactly. Did you know? Good point, Diana. That's
all right. As we're, you know, learning these techniques and these moves, the question was asked, should we make noise as we're doing, like, what are your thoughts on bringing attention,
great.
kicking, screaming, making noise?
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. So I assume they're talking about in a real life situation, self-defense situation. So here, I'm just gonna go straight on this. It's just the reality of it. If you're a woman and you're attacked, making noise, yeah, so if someone sees, they're much more likely to help you. Also, you know, if you strike and you breathe, you exhale, that's enough to maximize the power. As far as the striking goes, making, you know, all the noises, it's not going to give you any more power. Like in the movies in the 70s where, you know, Bruce Lee would make all these vocalizations, it pretty much does the same thing. It's just exhaling. If you're in a really dangerous situation and someone is attacking you, making noise could alert someone else, and they'd be more likely to come and help you. So that could actually, yeah, that could be very useful. You in a situation like that. I think I just heard someone.
Mm-hmm. And John, I see your hand raised. You can go ahead and ask your question if you'd like.
Yeah, sorry to ask two questions, but does that mean that you are not in support of kiais?
Of keys in the eyes? I'm sorry?
No, kiais, the noise you make when you exhale and throw a blow.
So I'm not saying that I don't support it. I just feel that the functionality of it is a bit overrated. Like I understand the concept of, you know, your chi and everything. But in my personal belief, I think that the difference in power from simply understanding how to exhale and use your breath and, you know, and the kiais, it's, I don't see much of a difference. And also I feel that focusing on the breathing is much more conducive to harmony in your body, because no matter what you're doing, you have to use breath. If you're moving, you're breathing. However, you're not making these sounds for everything you do. If you lift a box, you're not going to make these sounds. If you climb the stairs, you're not going to. So I feel like it's more useful to get used to using the breathing. And breathing is a major part of the teaching that I do. I teach breathing for power, I teach breathing for stamina, and I teach breathing for meditation. So understanding breathing, it's in a way, it's kind of like nutrition, because it's something that affects every aspect of our function in life. Another comprehensive answer for you.
Yes, very instructive and illuminating. Thank you.
What do you think about carrying pepper spray or mace?
Pepper spray or mace. So here's the thing. Obviously, there are situations where that can be very useful. There are also situations where you can spray yourself. That's something people don't want to talk about. If you were going to carry mace or any kind of a weapon, a knife, a gun, practice. I mean, you don't have to practice spraying it around, but just practice the opening. Sometimes people grab it really quickly and they spray, and then, you don't want to spray yourself. So as long as you do that, yeah, most of the women I know, they carry mace. Some also, they have these key fobs that they look like little cat heads that go around one finger and, have little spikes. But honestly, the things that I teach are going to take you further than that. Just having the awareness will put you in a position to defend yourself, whether you have a weapon or not. And if you don't have the awareness, if you're fight or flight and you're confused, you're not going to be as effective with those things. But yeah, if you want to carry mace, that's a perfectly fine idea. Just practice, get to know it, or any type of weapon.
Yeah. And one, just from a personal anecdote, when you do spray mace, it goes everywhere. So you definitely have to be mindful of not walking into it. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, a strike to the throat is pretty much guaranteed to slow somebody down. Mace, some people, it doesn't work on everybody. That's another thing a lot of people don't know, is that mace, some people, just because of their body chemistry or whatever, mace doesn't really work on them.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And another question, I think, just adding on to the making noise, and as making noise, like in a scenario where someone is approaching you or coming to you, would telling the person, attacker, back off or go away, would that be helpful as well, or will that agitate a situation?
Now, people, I apologize. There's one technique I forgot to show you. I'll show you right now. It actually is relevant to that question. Mm-hmm. So this is a technique you can do if someone is belligerent, they're encroaching on your space. You have your hands here. You say, that's close enough. You have your hand out like this. Now you'll note my targets. You'll notice I'm at this 45-degree angle. Now, if they decide they want to smack my hand out of the way, they want to grab it or whatever, guess what I'm in position for? I'm in position for a right cross. Okay, so while they're dealing with my hand out here, I throw that. My chances of landing are much higher. Okay. So most of the time, though, if you just say that that's close enough.
Close enough.
That'll work. I heard something.
Right. Oh, I think that was just a mic, but no, that was a good point. Clear, direct instruction, addressing and making eye contact to let the attacker or perpetrator know, stay away. Yeah, that's wonderful. Are there any other questions? We are nearing the top of the hour. And it looks like I see a hand raised by Brad.
Okay.
You can go ahead, Brad.
Thank you. So going back to the spatial awareness part, when you're walking down the street, I tend to not look at people because I thought that would agitate them, or I had this assumption that me staring at someone would cause them to want to cause harm as opposed to avoiding them. So that's why I was asking the question earlier about this spatial awareness. If you're walking down the street or walking down the sidewalk, fully present of what's going around, do you look at people that are standing on the side as you walk by them, or do you avoid giving eye contact? Again, going back to your comment about, looking straight ahead. So that was the question I was asking at.
That's an excellent question. And so here's the thing: if you're just walking down the street, you want to be aware of your surroundings. You want to be looking out, not down. but you don't need to stare at everybody
Right.
you pass. Like if someone is like engaging you, then you make eye contact, you be confident. But if they're just like mumbling or whatever
Sure.
they're doing, you can just keep it pushing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I saw another question that seemed relevant. A woman asked, or someone asks, what happens if someone grabs you from behind? I don't know who asked that, but if you're listening, I'm gonna answer your question. So there are several techniques you can do if someone grabs you from behind. Typically, if they grab you around the core, like the torso, and this is a little tricky to demonstrate virtually, but basically what you want to do, you lean forward, you bring your head back. Okay, assuming their head is around yours, you hit them in the nose. The back of your head is a lot harder and tougher than their face. The nose is extremely vulnerable. The lips are vulnerable. That's going to take the fight out. Another thing you can do once they've been hit, you do 2 elbows, okay, and the foot that's closest to the middle of or between your legs, you reach down, you grab that, and you hug it. And instead of standing up, you roll over to the side, and that brings them to the ground, and you have an opportunity to break their leg. That, I don't expect you to understand just from that explanation, but that's one of the things that I teach. There's several things I teach that actually put you at an advantage if you're on your back or if someone grabs you from behind. But something really simple that you could use tomorrow, assuming that their head is around where yours is, even if they're taller, probably gonna squat down. Just a nice headbutt to the nose or to the mouth. That's probably gonna take the fight out of them. If they lean back, elbow them, and as soon as they let go, you run. But like I said, there's a lot of things I teach that you can't just absorb in one session. But I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Direwolf. Thank you for leading this very informative session. We are at the top of our hour, and I'd like to thank everyone here for sticking around and asking these questions. I'll paste again his contact information. And at the end of our meeting, I'll be sending a link to our recording as well as the handouts that we covered today so that you can access this and learn again or rewatch. So again, really appreciate everyone taking the time to join in. Looking forward to the next time we get together. Thanks, friends. I'll go ahead and pause the recording now.